Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Jean-Yves. This has been a very interesting Heads of Agency plenary indeed. And now, per our IEC tradition, the Heads of Agencies will be ready to answer questions from journalists. And I would like to thank the following Heads of Agencies for still being connected remotely. So let me welcome once again Jim Bridenstine, NASA Administrator, Dmitry Rogozin, Director General of Roscosmos, Hiroshi Yamakawa, JAXA President, Lisa Campbell, President of the Canadian Space Agency, Kay Sivan, ISRO Chairman, and Jan Werner, ESA Director General. Let me also welcome the journalists who have connected from different corners of our globe. Unfortunately, we have only 20 minutes, so let's jump immediately to the first question, and let me ask the journalists and the heads of agencies to be as concise as possible in their questions and their answers. So first question comes from Clive Simpson, Room Space Journal. Clive, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As an international magazine for the space profession, Room Space Journal hears a lot from commentators about the new environmental crisis in the making, namely the escalating amount of space debris and multi-satellite constellations in low Earth orbits. As leaders of the world's most influential space agencies, you all have a responsibility and a duty to protect the space environment. So, in your opinion, how long have we got to address this problem, and how do you impose stricter regulations?
Thanks a lot, Clive. We've heard about space debris and the importance of that already from Jan Werner. So maybe, Jan, you would like to answer this question?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So in fact, space debris is already an issue and will become a bigger issue. We have something like 5,000 satellites in orbit right now, and only about less than 2,000 are really active. That means we have 3,000 which are not active, and then we have other parts like upper stages, we have adapters, etc. And therefore, I proposed to the member states of ESA, and they finally gave me the money, to have three things at the same time. Number one, a space debris removal mission. It's called ADRIOS. We will do it. Number one. Number two is a space debris avoidance mission, which is also within this ADRIOS, where we will show that we can deorbit directly all the parts which are not necessary. And then we have also using artificial intelligence an program which should look for for satellite collision avoidance. But your point of regulations is a very important point. But I say one word. I don't need a regulation for not killing other people. I don't need a regulation for not stealing things from other people. So therefore, we should have something like space ethics. Of course, it's better to have regulation, but not wait for a regulation, but do it. And so therefore, ESA tries to do it.
And for this very comprehensive answer. Next question, we move on to Jonathan Amos from the BBC. Jonathan, please.
Thank you. Greetings from London. Can I just hear from Jim Biden why the Artemis Accords are important? And it was interesting to hear from Mr. Rogozin in the plenary that he thinks that the Artemis program is too US-centric, the gateway is too US-centric. I take it from that Russia will not be signing the Accords. Does it think there ought to be some other guiding principle, document, memorandum of understanding that will work in the place of the Accords?
Thanks, Jonathan, for this question.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
we start with Jim.
Go ahead. Okay. So from our perspective, we believe it is very important that we have standards that we all adhere to when we explore space together. And that's not just within space in general, but also on other celestial bodies like the moon and eventually Mars. And so what the Artemis Accords are really about is coming up with what are those foundational principles that we all agree on so that when we go explore these worlds together, there's commonality. And it really, the whole purpose of it is to prevent misperceptions, to make sure that we are all disclosing and being transparent with where we're going and what we're doing and why, and then ultimately making sure that we're not conflicting with each other when we are doing these activities in space. But it also goes back to the previous question, which was about space debris, and how do we mitigate space debris? Once space debris is there, which it already is, we're tracking 23,000 pieces of debris that are 10 centimeters or bigger, which means there's a lot more that we're not able to track. You take all of that together. How do we make sure that we have enough data, really good data, and then how do we make sure that people will maneuver as necessary to prevent collisions and avoid more debris? So ultimately, when we think about the Artemis Accords, it really reinforces. In fact, that's what it's all about. It's about reinforcing the Outer Space Treaty, things like the registration convention, making sure that when you launch something into space, it's registered. There's really nothing in the Artemis Accords that is not already enshrined in the Outer Space Treaty, and I think there are things that we can all agree on, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that there are standards and rules that all of us abide by when we explore space together.
A lot, Mr. Bridenstine, and I would like to follow up with Mr. Rogozin on the same question from before on the approach to cooperation on the exploration program.
Вот смотрите, какая ситуация.
Well, we have the following situation.
Создание станции на Луне или на лунной орбите никоим образом не снимает вопрос о том, остаемся ли мы на околоземной орбите.
Building an outpost on the moon or building a station on lunar orbit does not eliminate an issue whether we are going to stay at the low Earth orbit.
Конечно, у Международной космической станции есть свой ресурс, он ограничен определенным возрастом, но тем не считаем, что если двигаться дальше по космической лестнице,
International Space Station has its own lifetime and it is limited, but we think that as we progress,
то на этой лестнице должна быть и первая ступень, а первая ступенька на этой лестнице это и есть МКС.
As we move on, as we move deeper into the space, we are moving up sort of a staircase, and the ISS is the first on this staircase.
Поэтому мы считаем, что международная коалиция должна обязательно сохраниться либо на МКС, либо на какой-то станции, которая пройдет.
This is why we believe that this international coalition needs to stay, whether basis of ISS or on some other basis, on the basis of another station that may replace ISS.
Если лунная программа, то она имеет национальный характер.
And talking about our lunar, it's a national program, first and foremost.
У Соединенных Штатов и партнеров будет, как мы говорим, Артемис, вот эта программа.
The United States, together with its partners, are currently doing its Artemis program.
Поэтому даже если Россия не будет напрямую участвовать в этой Артемис-программе, это вовсе не означает, что технические средства не могут быть адаптированы друг к другу.
Which means that even if Russia takes this not to participate in the Artemis program, that does not necessarily mean that our spacecraft should not be adapted to dock with each other.
Полеты на Луну будут сопровождаться повышенным риском.
And on the moon, a flight to the moon is associated with a high risk.
Поэтому надо иметь как минимум две транспортные космические системы.
This is why we need to have at least two space transportation systems.
Если Россия создает транспортную систему, она должна иметь возможность в случае необходимости состыковаться с Artemis.
And if Russia builds its own space transportation system, we need to have an opportunity to dock with the Artemis.
Поэтому мы говорим о том, что в любом случае потребуются договоренности и соглашения о адаптации интерфейсов и о адаптации стандартов.
This is why we say that in any case we'll have to be on harmonization of standards and standardization of interfaces.
Даже если эти программы будут самостоятельными.
Even if we pursue two standalone programs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rogozin. I think very important point on standardization. Now I'm delighted to go on to the next question that comes from Mr. Mahesh Guptan, Malayala Manorama Trivandrum in Kerala.
Thank you. My question is, India is becoming the global hub of low-cost satellite launch. What will be future prospects of low-cost nano satellites? How does the agencies, including NASA, plan to cooperate with ISRO?
Thank you very much. I had certain difficulties to understand, but maybe Mr. Siwan, you understood the question better than me?
I'm also not able to understand the question fully.
Can you repeat?
Can you please repeat the question again?
Yeah, India is trying to become the global hub of low-cost satellite launch. What will be the future prospect of low-cost nano satellites? How does the agencies, including NASA, plan to cooperate with the ISRO?
I'm still not able to understand, really. Mr. Siwan, if you did understand, no? Let's just move on to the next
What I
one.
understand.
Yes? Let's move on to the next one.
Question.
Sorry. Jeff Faust from Space News. Jeff, please.
Hello, this is a question for Director General Rogozin. You said that the Lunar Gateway program is too US-centric. What would have to change about the Lunar Gateway program or other element of Artemis for Roscosmos to consider participating in it? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Rogozin, please.
Мне кажется, самое важное, надо было бы, прежде всего, использовать те наработанные принципы международного сотрудничества, которые место при формировании МКС.
The most important thing here would be to base this program on the principles of international cooperation which were used in order for ISS program.
Понятно, что на МКС тоже есть и командир станции, но тем не менее мы знаем, что многие решения, практически все основные принципиальные решения принимаются.
Because we all know that on board of the ISS we have a crew commander, but regardless of that fact, all decisions are being taken collectively.
Поэтому, если мы могли бы вернуться к этим принципам, то мы могли бы вернуться и к рассмотрению самого вопроса об участии в этом.
If we could get back to considering making these principles as the foundation of the program, then Roscosmos could also consider its participation.
Kacheva from Roscosmos TV. We have Elena Takacheva from Roscosmos TV. Your question, please. Let's move on to the next one. Can I call Marc Boucher from Space Q Media? Your question, please.
Yes, my question is for Lisa Campbell. It's on the topic of regulatory reform and economic innovation. It's been 3.5 years since the independent review of the Remote Sensing Space Systems Act was published. As Canada tries to innovate and create impactful jobs, the Act is seen by industry, including startups, as an obstacle to innovation. As the Canadian Space Agency is the lead government agency for space and coordinating regulatory reform be on your list of immediate action items as you start your mandate? Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question, Mark. Great to be speaking with you. And you heard my opening remarks during the panel. When it comes to the global space sector, economy, technology, and science are coming together as never before. And Canada has to be a part of that. Space is a catalyst for invention. Rising to the challenge of space pushes the limits of what's possible. So yes, I am very focused on our current framework. How does it enable science playing a key role in the development of new technologies? How does science help us push engineering requirements far beyond the state of the art? Commercial space is making space more accessible through emerging opportunities, new applications, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And Canada has to be an important part of all of that. We have to position Canadian companies to seize their share of this new emerging global market and continue to contribute to the global economic recovery. We're going to work hard to position Canada's domestic space industry on the international stage. Our goal is to unlock the full potential of Canada's space sector and respond to the realities of a new and evolving space environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Campbell. And the next question from Irene Klotz from Aviation Week. If we don't have it, then I see Peter Deselding from Space Intel Report. Please, your question.
Yes, good afternoon. My question is for Dr. Sivan of ISRO. Dr. Sivan, you heard earlier about Europe's spaceport being shut down in the spring for a couple of months because of COVID. That has now happened to ISRO as well. I'd like your assessment of the current situation, and most particularly for the PSLV schedule. Are you planning a launch for November, or is it too early to tell given the COVID situation there? Thank you.
Actually, this for India, that is our spaceport, that is people has to travel from other ISRO centers to carry out the work. And because of this mission, this situation, there are some delay in our mission. And at the same time, now we are regained that work, and we are planning to have our PSLV, that C49 mission. It is going to be there sometime in November first week. We are targeting. Subsequently, that is all the missions will be continuously there as we plan. Thank you.
Mr. Sivan, dear heads of space agencies, dear journalists, dear delegates, unfortunately our time has ended. I would like to thank our heads of agencies, the journalists, and all of you for attending. Stay connecting, as there is now an interesting promotional announcement from the European Space Agency, and then following a very timely special session on the state and response of the global space sector during COVID-19. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.